Hi guys, it's Nikki here at Stillwater's Wreath Designs, and today I'm going to teach you a super simple way to make a stunning wreath with just one single roll of 10-inch Deco mesh. Come on in. Let me just take a quick moment to welcome anyone new here to the channel. Stillwater's Wreath Designs is all about step-by-step DIY wreath tutorials. If you like that sort of thing, I would love for you to hit that subscribe button and join us. You'll find a full materials list for you below in the description of this video so that you can recreate this beauty. Of course, you'll also find the Etsy link if you'd rather just purchase today's design. Okay, let's dive in. We'll be using this 10-inch in diameter patriotic welcome sign, 4 different types of wired ribbon, a single roll of 10-inch poly jute mesh, and a work wreath form. All right, guys, so if you're new to wreath making, this is what's called a work wreath form. It is 15 inches in diameter. It's got 2 levels, the upper and the lower, and then all of these, what we call ties, on the work wreath frame. You'll want to take those lower level ties and point them outwards like sunshine. So at this point, your wreath doesn't have a top or bottom. We're going to start at any lower level set of ties. You're going to have your mesh in front of you so that it's curl side down. And for today's one roll method, we're going to do the poof and curl method. So I've got about 12 to 18 inches extended here so that I can work with the mesh. And the first thing we need to do is anchor the mesh into our wreath base, starting at any lower level set of ties. And all I'm going to do here, guys, is place my hands at the edge of our mesh. I'm going to press down with my thumbs to hold that mesh stationary. And then with my other 8 fingers, I'm just going to walk that mesh back into my hand, just like that. So once you've got that Deco mesh tail, go ahead and open up any of the lower level set of ties into a wide V. Then tuck that tail back and under. And what that does is hide away the raw edge of your mesh. If you're new to working with Deco mesh loves to fray. So anything that we can do as creators to help reduce that fray is ideal. So we're going to take that tail, place it all the way down to the center of those ties, all the way at the base of the V, and give it 2 tight twists. And then we'll point those ties outwards once again, and we just anchored down our Deco mesh. You can see I've got a self-healing mat in the background. I'm going to use it to measure my mesh. If you don't have a self-healing mat, just grab a ruler. We're going to make 10-inch poofs. And so I've got my tie on the 14-inch mark, so I need to come out to the 24-inch mark to create that 10-inch poof. Once you've identified that 10-inch mark, you're just going to scrunch and gather your mesh into your hand just like we did before. Pinch that together. Come to the very next set of lower level ties. Take that pinch of mesh and place it all the way down to the base of the V of those ties. And give those ties a couple of tight twists and point them outwards. We've just added our first 10-inch poof. Let's do one more together and then we'll speed ahead. So you're going to identify that 10-inch mark, scrunch and gather your mesh, come to the very next set of lower level ties, open them into a wide V, take that mesh and place it all the way to the base of that V and give it your ties a couple of tight twists. We just added our second 10-inch poof. Go ahead and add 10-inch poofs all the way around the lower level of your work wreath form, and I'll meet you back here. So it's time to add our last lower level poof, and we're going to add that right on top to where we anchor our mesh down at the beginning. So we're going to follow the same pattern that we've been doing all the way around. We're going to gently untie those ties, and that mesh has memory, so it's not going to go anywhere. Place that pinch of mesh from your last poof all the way down to the base and give it a couple of tight twists. So we've just added our last lower level poof. Now it's time to jump our mesh up to the upper level to repeat that same process. First, I'm just going to point those ties towards the center of our wreath frame. And we're going to jump our mesh up to the closest set of ties on that upper level. We're not going to make a poof here, guys. We're just going to pull that mesh tautly. We'll come in behind that set of ties. I'll zoom in here for you. We're going to place that mesh that we've just jumped to the upper level all the way to the base of those ties and give them a couple of tight twists. So you can see I just jumped that mesh cleanly from the lower to the upper level. I came in behind those set of ties and anchored them down at the base. And now I can continue on with adding poofs to our wreath frame. The only difference between the upper level and the lower level is the poofs will be 8-inch poofs for our upper level, not 10. That just lets those poofs recede in a little bit so that you can still see the lower level of your wreath frame, but otherwise you'll follow the same pattern. Identify that 8-inch mark, scrunch and gather that mesh. Just doing this in my hand here so you can see how we anchor down. Open up that very next set of ties into a V, place that mesh all the way down to the base, and you guessed it, give it a couple of tight twists to secure it down and point those guys inwards. We've just added our first upper level poof. Go ahead and add 8-inch poofs all the way around that upper level of your wreath, and I'll meet you back here. Okay, it's time to add our last poof into our wreath base. So I've identified that 8-inch mark. I'm pinching and gathering that mesh. And we're going to add it right on top of where we jumped our mesh from the lower to the upper level. So again, carefully untwist those ties. Open those ties into a V. Take the pinch of mesh for your last poof here and place it all the way down to the center of those ties and give them a tight, tight twist. And we've just added our last upper level poof. So now we need to trim away the remainder of the roll of mesh. So I'm going to zoom in here, guys, and show you how I do that. I just place my hand between the remaining roll of mesh and the neighboring poof. And I just do that so that my hand serves as kind of a guard to make sure I don't cut anything I'm not supposed to. I'm going to come up about 1 inch from that last set of ties and trim away that mesh. So here is what our base is looking like at this point. We've added all of our poofs in, and now it's time to cut the remainder of our roll of Deco mesh into curls. For this next step, we'll be using the self-healing mat and rotary cutter. If you don't have those items, guys, no worries. Just grab a ruler and a good pair of scissors. But let me show you, if you're new to wreath making, what a rotary cutter is. It basically looks like a mini pizza cutter, and it lets you cut your mesh with nice clean lines and quickly. And then the self-healing mat that you see here in the background has measurements running both vertically and horizontally, so you can easily measure out your items. I'll make sure that I leave a link for both of these items below in the description of this video, so that you can add those to your toolbox if you need to. So what I'm going to do is just trim this mesh so that we've got a clean line here. And we're going to cut the entire remainder of our roll into 8-inch pieces. So I'm just going to measure out the 8-inch mark on my self-healing mat and cut. So go ahead and cut up the remainder of your roll into 8-inch pieces, and then I'll meet you back here. Once you've got the remainder of your roll cut up into 8-inch pieces, we'll go ahead and add curls into our wreath base. And to add curls, guys, you're just going to take a single piece of Deco mesh that you just cut. You'll lay that in your workstation, curl side up, and you're just going to roll that into a cylindrical tube, or as we say in wreath making, a curl. So it should look something like this, about 1 inch to 1.5 inches in diameter here in the center. And then of course it flares out at the ends. And we're going to add 1 curl to every single set of ties on our wreath base. So to add a curl, you'll just come to any set of ties, take that curl and place it at the center of the V of those ties all the way down to the base. Give those ties a couple of tight twists. And you've just added your first curl. Let's do one more together and then we'll speed ahead. So you'll grab your piece of Deco mesh, bring it to your work area, curl side up. Roll that guy into a cylindrical tube. Come to any set of ties on your wreath base. Open those ties into a wide V. Place that curl all the way down to the base. And give those ties a couple of tight twists. Let's go ahead and add our curls into our wreath and I'll meet you back here. Okay, we've just finished adding in the curls and look how stinking cute this wreath base is, you guys. What I love about the one roll of mesh method is that it doesn't leave you with questionable scrap rolls of mesh. You know exactly what you need to complete the design. And look how stinking cute that is. So this is the poof and curl method. The next step is to add in ribbon tails. So let me set this off to the side and grab my ribbon. So today we're going to use 4 different types of wired ribbon. You can use as many or as few as you would like. Just make sure that whatever ribbon you choose is wired. I'm going to use 2 different 2.5 inch ribbon types and 2 1.5 inch ribbon types. And remember, we've got 18 sets of ties on our wreath frame. Now we are going to reserve 1 set of ties on the upper level for a bow. So we're just going to need 17 sets of ribbon tails for our wreath. And I'm going to alternate back and forth between 2 combinations. We'll use these 2 ribbons together as a pairing and these 2. So we'll need 8 sets of tails of one combination and 9 sets of tails of the other combination, in whatever order you prefer. Let me show you a quick way to measure out your ribbon tails here, guys. There's lots of tools out there that you can buy, like ribbon boards and things of that sort, but you can also just do a quick measurement. So all I do, I'm going to use my self-healing mat here. Of course, you can use your ruler if you don't have a self-healing mat. We want our tails to be 11 inches in length. So I'm going to identify that 11-inch mark. Mark that with my finger. I'm not looking for perfection here, guys. No one's going to measure. And then I'm going to fold this ribbon accordion style for the total number of pieces that I need. We'll do 9 of this set. So there's 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, and 9. Once you've got that total number of tails folded accordion style, just trim away the rest of the ribbon roll. Now we're going to take our scissors and separate those tails. We'll spin that ribbon stack around and do the same thing on the opposite end. And I'm just going to layer them so that they're right side up. And then in groups of 3, I'll trim my ends. So I'm just going to grab 3 pieces, make sure those ends are married up nicely. For this particular wreath, guys, we're just going to do angle trimmed ribbon tail ends. So I'm coming down about 3/4 of an inch and cutting up diagonally to the corner. We'll flip that ribbon stack around. Now make sure you know the strength of your scissors. Cut as many as your scissors can do comfortably, and come down 3/4 of an inch and cut up diagonally. So we've just trimmed our ends. I'm going to put them off to the side. We're going to repeat this pattern for all the ribbon types. Remember, you're going to need 9 sets of tails of one ribbon combination and 8 of the other. And your ribbon tails need to be approximately 11 inches in length. So go ahead and get your ribbon tails prepped, and then I'll meet you back here. Once you've got your ribbon tails cut and ready to go, go ahead and scoot them off to the side, grab your wreath frame, and we'll start loading in our ribbon tails. We're going to add 2 ribbon strips to every single set of ties all throughout our wreath frame, with the exception of 1 upper level set of ties, which we will reserve for a bow. At this point, guys, your wreath doesn't have a top or bottom, so you can start anywhere. And let me show you how we're going to add these in. We'll do 2 together and then speed ahead. I'm going to go back and forth between my 2 ribbon combinations. So I'm literally going to take my 1.5 inch ribbon strip, lay that right on top of the 2.5 inch. I'm going to eyeball to find the center. You're welcome to measure, or you can just fold in half to identify that center point. And then you just give that a pinch right there at the center. I kind of pull it into a V over my thumb. You're going to come to any set of ties on your wreath frame. Open those ties into a V and place your ribbon tails all the way down to the base. And give those ties 2 or 3 super tight twists. Once you've added those tails in, go ahead and trim off the excess bits of your ties. We won't be using those anymore. And toss them away. I just take my fingers then and kind of curl those ties back and under, and then I fluff my ribbon tails. And by fluff, guys, all I'm really doing is pulling them outwards away from the center of our wreath. And so let's do one more together and then we'll speed ahead. I've grabbed my 2 ribbon strips. I'm going to lay the 1.5 inch ribbon strip right on top of the 2.5. I'll fold those in half to find that center. I'm going to give that a pinch in the middle there and kind of fold it into a loose V over my thumb. I'll come to that next set of ties and open them into a V and place those ribbon tails all the way down to the center of that V, all the way at the base. Give those ties 2 or 3 tight twists. And I'm going to trim off the excess bit of ties. I'm just using my small snips here, guys. I'll leave a link for those below if you need to add them to your toolbox. Then I'm just going to tuck those remaining tie bits underneath and fluff out or straighten out my tails. Just like that. I'm going to repeat this pattern all the way throughout my wreath, reserving 1 set of ties on the upper level for our bow. So let's go ahead and get our ribbon tails added in, and I'll meet you back here. Okay, guys, we've got all of our tails added into our wreath, and look how stinking cute this beauty is turning out to be. So at this point, our wreath is approximately 26 inches in diameter and probably 8 or so inches in depth at its widest point. So now we're going to add our sign into our wreath. So this is the sign that we'll be using, and I'm not sure if the camera is capturing it or not, but it's basically a really dense, weather-resistant foam. If the sign that you're using is wood, I would recommend that you use mounting brackets. I'll leave a link for those below for you to easily attach your sign. But because this is a foam sign, I'm going to use 2 20-gauge floral wire stems and my small jewelry hole punch to attach this guy in. Remember, we've left a set of ties open here at the top to attach our bow. So our bow will be here and then flowing down a bit. And I'd like my sign to be on the opposite side at a little bit of an angle. So I'm going to take my hole punch, come in about 1/2 inch and just punch. And that's going to make a nice clean hole. So I'm just eyeballing where I want those at. This is such a handy tool, guys. Then I'm going to take my floral wire stem and fold it in half just to identify that center point. I'm going to run that right through. I know it's green, but I promise it's not going to look offensive. I'm going to pull that tautly to the back side and just spin that a couple of times so that it doesn't come undone. And then we'll do the same thing at that lower level hole that we added into our sign. So now I'm just going to run this right through my wreath, right through the mesh. Give yourself some grace here, guys. I'm going to give those floral wire stems 2 or 3 more twists just to make sure that guy's nice and anchored down. Then I'm going to use my small snips to trim off those excess bits of floral wire and toss them away. And I'm going to take my needle nose pliers and just pinch those ends together and kind of curl them back into the wreath. That way if someone happens to grab the wreath right there, they're not going to get poked. Perfect. So just take a quick second here, and any of those tails that might have got stuffed underneath there or curls, just go ahead and pull them back out so they're peeking underneath. That is looking so cute. Okay, let's move on to making our bow. So I'm just going to grab a pipe cleaner, fold that guy into a loose V and set it off to the side. My scissors, and all 4 of the ribbon types that we use for our tails, and I'm going to make a quick hand bow. I'm going to speed through this process here, guys, but I will leave a bow tutorial for you below in the description of this video, so if you need some help with making your bows, you can reference those quick tutorials. So I'm going to take just a second and pull all of those tails in one direction, but we're not going to worry about those loops or fluffing them out until we've added this into our wreath. So I'm going to bring my wreath back into my work area. We're going to use those ties that we've reserved to anchor this bow stack down. So I've just opened them into a wide V. I'm going to place that bow stack right in the center and use those ties to anchor that down in. And then I'll just curl those bits out of the way. If your ties are lengthy, just go ahead and trim them off. And now we're going to take a couple of minutes to fluff out our bow. So all I'm going to do is, starting at the back, spread those loops out. And open them up. Bow fluffing is something that you need to give yourself grace with, guys. Takes a little while. I always start at the back or the bottom and work my way forward, but you can certainly fluff your bow any way you'd like. I've got 6 total loops of the 2.5-inch ribbon and 5 of the 1.5-inch ribbon. I'm going to grab my scissors and angle trim the ends of my ribbon tails. I know they're lengthy tails, but we're going to curl them in just a minute. When you're trimming your ribbon tails, I always like to caution you to trim carefully. You can always take more off, but you can't put it back on once you've trimmed it away. So cut carefully. I'm just going to grab a cardboard insert. This is actually the center of the Deco mesh roll that we just used to make this wreath. I always keep one in my toolbox because this is the perfect tool to curl your ribbon. And to curl your ribbon tails, guys, all you're going to do is start at the bottom of your cardboard insert and roll that ribbon tail all the way up to the center of your bow and release. And you'll have this cute little curl. If the curl's too tight, you can pull on it and that'll relax it a bit. If it's too loose, just recurl. I'm going to take a couple of minutes and curl all of my tails here. How stinking cute. Okay, I'm going to come back in and just fluff those bow loops one more time, just to make sure they're all standing to attention. How cute is this, you guys? Oh my goodness. Adorable. Okay, we've got just one more step, so go ahead and plug in your hot glue gun. And we're going to add just a little bit of greenery into our wreath just to give it some freshness. Let me scoot this off to the side and I'll show you what we'll be using. So we're going to use this greenery vine from Hobby Lobby. If you're new to wreath making, guys, you will soon learn that florals will always be at the top of your expense list when making wreaths. So I'll just let you know that Hobby Lobby has their florals on sale for 40% off every other week. So be mindful of those sales when you're grabbing your florals. I lean on this bush most often when I'm adding just a little bit of greenery bits into my mesh wreaths because this really gives a great pop of color. It's a very sturdy vine and it's weather resistant. And we're going to add one greenery bit to every single space where we had a tie in the wreath. Okay, let's get these glued in. So we're just going to take a single bit of greenery, run a bead of hot glue right down that stem and add it to each place on our wreath that once had a set of ties. You can use your scissors or something to poke that in. The little bits of material on those leftover ties are great for anchoring down. We're just going to add one bit of greenery to every single space. And this beauty is finished. Oh my goodness. I sure hope you enjoyed creating with me today. If you did, be sure to give this tutorial a thumbs up. It really helps my little channel to grow. Thanks for spending time with me today. Happy crafting.